Thank you very much. Great talks from the hand division. So I'm going to move us forward to the next talk. It's a very special person to me, and someone who is truly remarkable and resilient. And I'm really excited that she agreed to speak to our alumni in our department. Her name is Allie Redshaw, and she's a well-known yoga instructor here in town, but she's an incredible paraclimber, and what she's accomplished is truly remarkable. She grew up in Southern Virginia, and her and her husband, Ian, I've crossed paths before this terrible day. They owned some restaurants here in town, but on March 1st, 2017, I got a call while in clinic, and Allie was in the emergency room. She was working at Lampo Pizzeria, which many of you have been to here in Charlottesville, and she had a life-altering accident. Her right hand was caught in a industrial meat grinder and pulled through the meat grinder. So she came to the emergency room with the meat grinder attached to her, and it was a horrific injury. And on top of that, she was pregnant with her second daughter and very early in her first trimester. This was one of the most heart-wrenching surgeries I had to perform. Salvage wasn't an option, and we put in a catheter and proceeded with revision amputation and washouts, and we kept the catheter in for almost 6 weeks and changed it every week. She took no pain medicine. She didn't want to compromise her pregnancy. And after this horrific injury, she has gone on to one of the most incredible careers that you can ever imagine. She she climbs mountains, and she works with Water Boys, Chris Long's Water Boys organization, and she just climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. And we were talking to her, texting with her last week, and she was climbing somewhere in Spain, and she's incredible. And her husband Ian is a James Beard finalist chef, and she still works with him, offering catering services and hosting special dinners. But what she has done, despite this injury, is really inspiring and uplifting. And I'm just glad to know the family, glad to know the kids, and just very honored, Allie, that you're here to speak with us, and Ian is here as well. So thank you. So please. We'll have some questions afterwards. But yes,
Okay, thank you.
Stand by.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for having me here. I stayed out in the lobby before this because I swore that I wouldn't get teary-eyed. That didn't last for very long because every time Dr. Chhabra speaks, it's like waterworks. So the first slide, and I always feel like I can't say enough. Just thank you. I am here because of Dr. Chhabra and his team, but because of the belief in recovery post-injury, and how healing can happen from really terrible traumatic injuries. And that really, each patient that you have interaction with is a story. And my story started the day that I came in to the hospital with meat grinder attached, all of these different moving parts, baby in utero, and just so much that I was completely unaware of was happening to care for my life and for my daughter Willow's life. And that was all because Dr. Chhabra cared about the story of the person that was on his table and the life that I had following what happened when I left the hospital and his office. I'm going to use this as a guide. So this is me the week of my amputation, I should have known that that smile was me destined for what was ahead. You know, I can tell you that the only reason I was smiling in this picture is because I had a constant circulation of incredible caregivers coming in and out of my room, checking on me, checking on Willow, and reassuring me that healing would happen and that we would do it together, and that we had the resources here to help me through this incredibly difficult time. And I believe that. And yeah, just so incredibly grateful. This is, yeah, just a sweet therapy dog, one of the many, one of the many moments that I remember from the hospital of just, again, different resources that I had access to make me smile, to bring joy to me, to help me keep, this is my baby Willow, and I was going in and out of Jefferson OB every 2 to 3 weeks, checking in to make sure that she was healthy, that her heartbeat was regular. Again, I opted out of taking pain medication because it felt counterintuitive to me to put that into my body when she wasn't in choice of those things being exposed to her. So yeah, just again, grateful for all the resources I had that helped me with pain mitigation. This is me very shortly after. Dr. Chhabra and his team were very adamant that I get out, that I move my body. And that is when after I had Sweet Willow, how I quickly found, and that's my other daughter, Sawyer. She was about 18 months when we came into the hospital for my amputation. This is me, again, after I had Willow. I had so much power and voice behind me in Dr. Chhabra's team telling me, get outside, move your body. This is not the end of you. This is just the beginning, and we have resources to help. So I very quickly found the amputee community, not necessarily right away in Charlottesville, but this was out in Salt Lake, where I went to the National Ability Center, which is an incredible, incredible resources for those that have lost limbs or are congenital amputees. And you can do any sport your heart desires, whether it is sit skiing, archery, literally anything you can think of, rock climbing, an incredible resource for those in need, those suffering. This is a picture of Kirsty Ennis is her name, and she was a huge game changer for me. So when I came into the hospital and was still in recovery, a friend of the restaurant community, Chris Long, who is a well-known football player who lives locally, had heard about my injury and had reached out to us as a family and let me know that he had summited Mount Kilimanjaro with Kirsty Ennis. And he let me know that she was an incredible outlet for amputees that wanted to get outside, whether it was rock climbing, mountain biking, or snowboarding. And she has now become my mentor, my sponsor for rock climbing. She is an incredible paraclimber herself. Obviously, she lost her left leg in a helicopter injury, a helicopter accident when she was in Afghanistan. And yeah, again, she provides prosthetic and orthotic provisions, care, awareness for all different types of amputees, upper limb, lower limb, wheelchair users, and provides them the ability to come out into the outdoors and feel life again, to feel movement in their body, to feel challenged. And yeah, just I very, very deeply fell into the rock climbing community. This is Ian and I on the top of Cotopaxi, which is an active volcano in Ecuador. And we climbed this volcano with a group called the Range of Motion Project. And they are a group who provides orthotic and prosthetic care and pieces to clinics in Guatemala and Ecuador, where there are not a lot of established clinics, where a lot of people who have lost limbs or suffered trauma, isolate themselves from the community. They spend a lot of their life incapable of sourcing an income or getting a job and are really shunned from the community because they don't have prosthetic care. And so all of our mountain climbs have been for any sort of mission like this. I say that there is no mountain that I don't climb that doesn't have a mission behind it. So whether it's the Range of Motion project, this is me climbing in Mallorca, Spain. I was doing a 700-meter climb up a rock face, and that was my first multi-pitch climb. And when I do climbs like this outdoors, I sometimes I wrap my distal end and sometimes I leave it without tape. Again, Dr. Chhabra really incentivized me to desensitize that area, which helped a lot with raising a tiny baby. There were always, little cars or tiny pieces with sharp edges everywhere. So, and I was wrangling her in the middle of the night, changing her diaper when I had just gotten sutures out, not very soon before that. So, this is me, in Mallorca, Spain, climbing for a group called Beyond Boundaries, which is a group in local in Richmond. And we facilitate taking any athlete or human that has a disability stemming from autism to visual impairment, hearing loss, and we get outside, whether it's kayaking, fishing, hiking, rock climbing, whatever you want to do, we do it. We facilitate that. Whatever equipment we have to source, and we have climbers coming from Harrisonburg, Williamsburg, because there is no other outlet like that. This is me climbing without a rope, about 35 feet above the water in Mallorca, Spain. Again, I'm unroped. I'm using that arm to really dig into rocks, to pull myself up, to hold up my entire body's weight. And this is my most recent trip to Tanzania. When I was summiting Mount Kilimanjaro, and again, we did this for clean water advocacy. It's really what the Chris Long Foundation is all about. It's their mission. And it was really interesting because as much as we were there for, finding well sites and distributing clean water and potable water, there aren't a lot of humans with limb difference in Tanzania, or at least those that are out and about in the community. And so it was really incredible. And I love to put this picture up because all of the littles in Tanzania were so enthralled with my arm. They wanted to come up and they wanted to touch it, and they all wanted to tell me how sorry they were that I had suffered, because to them that was like the ultimate suffering was, oh my gosh, you can't work, your life is probably over, you probably can't make any money, you live in your house. And it was so cool to talk to them and to get to translate into, I'm going up this really big mountain with this team and we're here to do really important work. And this tribe honored me, a warrior, and they honored me with this scarf that I'm wearing. It's called a shuka, and it's what they give to their warriors of their tribe. They feel like that I had really endured, and they didn't really even know me. I was a perfect stranger to them, but from my outward appearance, from what they saw, they deemed me worthy of this. And I actually have my shuka with me, and I would love to gift it to you, Dr. Chhabra, because it was the greatest honor that this tribe could give to me. And every year when March 1st rolls around, I feel at a loss of words and gratitude to you and your team for my life. And so I would love, it would be my honor to gift that to you, because I would never have gone on this trip or been in this beautiful country or gotten to see these incredible smiling faces, and to have them, touch a piece of my body that at one point in my life, not very long ago, I felt like was the end, was the end of my culinary career. Just wasn't sure how I was gonna do daily tasks or parent. And now I'm out in not only this community, but international communities, competing with Team USA as a para climber representing our country, showing the world that healing can happen with a care team that is diligent and really truly does care about their patient. So I am a model for an agency that represents those with disabilities. When Ian and I got married the first time, I had all of my appendages, so we had to do it again. We got remarried, and he got to do it with me, with my nub and all its glory. I have free climbed up 65 feet on that wall and fallen into the pool and won a bottle of vodka in Canada. I have learned to ride a bike again and really enjoy it to the point where I don't feel like I have a death grip on something. You know, I have again climbed with Team USA all over the world. I have stood in front of a room just like this at many conferences as a keynote speaker, which sometimes I really have to gain some perspective of like, remember why you're here. And you do have a story, and it is incredible, and it's not vain to tell it. It's sharing, it's inspiring. You know, it's a reminder that just because what's laying in front of you seems insurmountable at the moment, there is so much life after, and between someone's willpower and your, you know, advocacy and willingness and care, there's so much life. This is me at a conference for the Lucky Fin Project, which we work with children that are born with congenital limb differences, but also experience traumatic limb loss. And we are there for families that are carrying children in the womb that we already know are going to experience limb difference based on, you know, the umbilical cord being wrapped around their arm, all the way up to, you know, we have people that come to these conferences that are 99, 100 years old, and they're wheelchair users or, yeah, just limb different and would love community. And so that's what we bring in the Lucky Fin Project. This is another competition, you know, you can see again, just no tape, using that distal end, just chalked up, really pushing, applying so much pressure, fighting to get up these walls. I have learned to do yoga and, you know, so many things with my arm. I'm actually a representative of the brand Lululemon, which I am a disability and inclusion advocate for them as a brand. So I help them not only to think about their garments and how they're going to affect people that may have a body that functions differently, but I also am just representation of physical difference in a brand that can be exclusive. And so this is Mount Kilimanjaro, me all the way at the top. This is me last week in my work in Spain with Chhabra. He is the best climber in the world. I don't know if anyone here is a rock climber or if anyone nerds out on that kind of stuff, but he is the pinnacle of all rock climbers. And I got to go and climb rocks with him in Mallorca, Spain last week. No ropes. This is the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. It's the most beautiful above the clouds. This year, I just received while I was away the Challenged Athlete Foundation grant. So that's going to allow me to go off on my next adventure and hopefully fuel more of the adaptive community. I'm not excited at all to be going up Mount Kilimanjaro. You can see my surgical socks that I still have there. I have a ton of them from when I was in the hospital recovering. And oftentimes I will keep that over my arm if it gets really cold at night, or sometimes when I'm climbing, I'll use it as a barrier between my cape and my skin. Yeah, just cute, sweet angels in Tanzania. Again, they were giving me high fives, but at my side, 3 of them were gripped to my arm, just like studying it, feeling it, touching it, rubbing it, like rubbing it on their face. It was a real novelty. All of the elders, you'll see, they shook my hand, my arm, which in America, that's such an awkward, like, do we turn around? Do we fist bump? How do we do this? Not in Tanzania. They just go right in for it. And it made me feel so good that they did that. You can see the joy on my face of just that connection. connection with these incredible humans. I'm a yoga instructor at the university's Contemplative Sciences Center, the new building that was just built right up the road. And I'm really happy to offer just adaptive, inclusive yoga, again, just some representation modeling. And yeah, that's a brief look at my life story post injury. And I never would have accomplished any of those things, any of these things. And I feel like this is just the beginning of getting to be in the work of awareness and advocacy and inclusion for people that have suffered. And so that, that care and that fuel to be passionate about those things started with Dr. Chhabra and his love and care for me and his team, and the pain management team, and the team that came in and put the nerve block catheter. Like, it just, the list goes on. And I don't remember a lot of the faces, to be honest with you. So coming in this room, I'm kind of seeing some faces, and I remember a little bit, but I can tell you that the imprint on my life, the stamp in my heart, the piece that will be my forever why is Dr. Chhabra, and the way that he loved me without really even knowing me, just authentically caring. So thank you. Thanks for listening and being here today, and yeah, your presence means a lot.
Wow. Obviously, Allie has accomplished a lot after a devastating injury, and it's remarkable to hear her story. I've heard bits and pieces of it, but this is the first time I've heard the whole story like this, and what you've done. Allie, if you don't mind me asking a few questions. A lot of people with your injury struggle with phantom limb pain, struggle with sensitivity, struggle with, really, they don't use their arm. What was your experience? And can you share, did you have these issues, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I did not experience any phantom pain at all. And I attribute that mostly to the nerve block catheter that was in, and the, again, just care and attunement to how long is too long, making sure that that was just such a delicate process of being cared for so intricately. And I also just the desensitizing process of some of the methods of healing in OT and PT afterwards. They knew that I was pregnant and that I was going to be dealing with a wiggly baby in the middle of the night. And so there was a lot of fine motor work with my left arm, and I think strengthening that side of my body, which was my non-dominant side. I don't know, it gave me incentive to want to keep my right side strong and to make sure that that side of my body didn't become dormant or unused, that those muscles didn't atrophy. Deep diving straight into climbing, I knew that I was going to need that. I knew that my right side was going to be a super important part of me being able to kind of throw myself into the ring with some of the best climbers in the world, because I haven't been climbing since I was 5 years old. And so learning how to really befriend my right side, strengthen it like I do my left side, that was very important from the get-go. Yeah.
So you were right-hand dominant
I was.
prior to this injury, so obviously you had to develop a lot of skills with your left. So I think one of the points is you didn't take any pain medicine, and we had a peripheral catheter that we changed every week. So that probably helped with some of that phantom pain. So, and you and I had long discussions, hours of discussions about prosthetics. And we do targeted muscle reinnervation here to reduce pain at amputation sites. We have myoelectric prostheses now. You tried a bunch of prosthetics. Can you tell us your experience and why you don't use them?
Absolutely. My main reason for not using a prosthetic is really just the workers' compensation was a real battle for me. It was a really intimidating process, and it was, and unfortunately is for many amputees, the reason that recovery may not be as successful as it could be. And so, yeah, I hope that is a work in progress, but my experience with UVA prosthetics was incredible. My prosthetist, Kevin, was absolutely wonderful, and we went through the process of beginning the transition into a myoelectric prosthetic. So it did a lot of fitting electrodes into the muscle belly, working with my pronation and supination. He worked a lot, very closely with my OT and PT to make sure that I was doing the exercises every day, so that my range of motion was intact, so that I could fully use the prosthetic the way that it should have been. And so, yeah, just unfortunately that kind of got halted in the middle of the process, which is why I don't use a prosthetic. And yeah, just now that I've learned to do so many things without it, it feels strange to try to start at any point now. Something.
So Allie has helped, she really advocates. I had recently, July 4th, actually, a 10-year-old girl here in the community that was on an ATV and flipped her ATV, burned and crushed her hand. That was unsalvageable. And this is a young girl. You know, obviously we try to replant what we can, but you know, Allie is such an advocate for our patients and our amputees, and great resource for us here at UVA and really across the country, across the world, based on what she's accomplished. So I want to open up any questions. Chip?
Allie, that was tremendous. Colin Powell had saying that optimism is a force multiplier. And I think you're a great example. But my questions are, one, do you have a dog of your own now? And two, if Bobby could transplant a hand, would you go for that?
Answer to the first question is yes, I do. And no, I wouldn't. It sounds insane when people ask me questions similar to that, or if you could change time and make it so that that never happened. You know, if something else changed in that trajectory of the 5 minutes where your arm went down into the meat grinder. And of course, I most certainly would avoid that excruciating pain. But the experiences and the awareness and the knowledge that I have gained since that day is more than I ever could have asked for in the life that I had prior. Not only just the life of my daughter, where, you know, so many things could have happened differently. I could have not known that I was pregnant, you know, and they could have pushed morphine on site, and I could have woken up without a hand and a baby. And just that in and of itself is enough to make me catch my breath every day, and just feel grateful that I'm here in these bones, and I'm grateful for the shape that my body has now, and I'm so grateful that I am able to be a force of advocacy for people that are these, you know, these young children that may not see, you know, may never have seen another person that looks like them, you know, and then they, can look in a Target ad now or a Nike ad and they see people with limb difference, with prosthetics that are wheelchair users. And I think that is the direction the world always should have been going. So I'm grateful to be a part of the change.
Great. Second question, the interest. Is that question?
Yeah, she did.
You have a dog.
She did.
Thanks very much. That's an incredible talk, and it's I'm ortho trauma surgeon here, so I do a lot of lower extremity amputations. I was curious. You talked about two questions. Actually, one, rock climbing would have been the first thing I would have thought about. It's like, oh, that seems like a great activity for recovery. How did you decide that? Since you were not a climber before, how did you decide that rock climbing was a good way to move forward? Because I'm always trying to encourage people to move into different activities, but that wouldn't have been the first thing I would have thought of.
Rock climbing chose me. It was the first amputee clinic that I could get myself into. It was literally, I think I was just ready for whatever showed up on the line, and it was rock climbing. And I was actually the only upper limb amputee in that group. Everyone else was a lower limb amputee, which is a very common paraclimbing for lower leg amputees. It just the components are readily available for lower leg prosthetics. There's all different types of, a hook, a tiny foot, a tiny climbing shoe. There's so many options now, and so many big brands like Evolve that make climbing shoes that are providing those prosthetic pieces.
Do you use something to help you rock climbing? Are there additive type things you might use to help hold onto things, or do you like a grip or something like that you could put into a crack or something?
Don't. I just use what I got. But I actually do know Team Italy, all of their upper limb amputees, Scarpa, a very well-known rock climbing shoe company, makes a Vibram sleeve for their arm. And it affixes with Velcro, and it actually adheres to the rock holds similar to a climbing shoe.
Second question was, you mentioned that there were not a lot of options in Charlottesville for limb difference care, amputee care. Have you found that there now are those, or was that you developing those things?
It's in the works. I do find that driving to Richmond, there is a much larger community. And I think that is just because there's a huge rock climbing community in Richmond. And so it's easier to find adaptive climbers or people that are interested in that, and a facility that can host, that has the chairlift that we need and all types of things like that. But yeah, it is definitely something that is in the works in Charlottesville for sure.
Thank you.
More questions? Ken?
Thank you so much for that talk. As surgeons, we all look towards outcomes. Is the wound healed? Do you have range of motion? One thing we didn't have teaching on, and we don't focus a lot, is, as you mentioned multiple times, the healing. That's also emotional, relationship, spiritual. Can you comment on the journey you had outside of orthopedics and medicine, maybe the spiritual healing and the internal healing, and how you went about that, and where that's brought you now? Clearly, the light that you have is not just from a physical healing, but there's been a spiritual, there's been emotional, there's been a relationship healing. Where'd that start, and how's that developed?
That's such a thoughtful question. I mean, it sounds really cheesy, but it really did start, with Dr. Chhabra, and I've never experienced human interaction with someone, which I feel much more attuned to now than I did prior to my injury. And I think that is just a side of me that kind of woke up, a piece of me that was not ready yet. And just having interaction and energetic exchange with someone who is very vulnerable and willing to give everything they have to, again, someone that, he had no idea what my outcome was going to be, that I was going to go out into the world and be this huge, inclusion, power and force, and but he treated me like I was. Like he he treated my family like he had so much hope in our ability to make it through this, where we, in the moment, were very unsure that we could make it through this. And then, you know, as he began to advocate for us, you know, the community in Charlottesville rallied around us like I've never experienced. And my hope is that we can, as a family, continue to pay that forward, which is why I want my daughters to be very deep in the disabled and adaptive community, because I want them to understand that equality and equity is not always available and access is not always available. And so we need to be the advocates for people, for those that can't. And so when the community started bringing over meals for 6 months after I lost my hand, you know, we had people coming over just to brush my hair or take our 18-month-old to the park, or, you know, people that I hadn't heard from since I was in middle school or elementary school that had seen my story on the news and then had reached out to my husband and, you know, poured letters out, this, you know, a GoFundMe account, you know, just like for my healing and for my care. And it was just more, I mean, it's so overwhelming. It's more than I know how to integrate into gratitude and to express what that meant to us. And so I think that was a huge spiritual shift and a mental, emotional foundation of perspective of that it was then our job to go out and do that for other families, for other people. So it's a gift and an honor to me when I get a phone call about, you know, a 10-year-old little girl who suffered something and she needs just someone to say, hey, it's okay for this to really suck. And we can totally embrace how terrible this feels right now. But then I can also tell you 10 organizations that really want to talk to you and want to give you community and want to give you sports if you want sports, or teach you cooking classes or prosthetic or whatever you need. And it's just the well of community is incredible.
I remember when Allie called me, we had a discussion. She wanted to start rock climbing. I almost fell out of my chair. You know, but she asked me so many times, can I do this? Can I do this? And I never said no, because I figured out very quickly that even if I said no, she was going to figure out a way to do it, right? Because the power of her optimism and the power of her will was absolutely tremendous. So by the way, this young little girl, I showed a lot of your videos and some of the stuff you've accomplished. So she was really into cheerleading. So she's doing cartwheels on her amputation stump, and she's 7 months out. And fortunately, she doesn't have the phantom limb pain either. We treated her nerves so she wouldn't have that. And we're talking about my electric prosthetics now, but she's young, so she's going to grow. So we're going to wait for that. But she is assimilated back to regular high school or regular middle school incredibly well. And she's back to the activity she was doing before. So I know it's going to be tough for her in the future, but having role models like this it's just extraordinary, truly extraordinary. So any last questions, because we are almost to lunch. Yes, please, Kate.
I can wait. So I know in the disability community, language is really important about how people talk about their own disability. Just wondering if you have advice for us as providers when we're talking to patients.
I actually hosted an inclusive language workshop at the Center for Contemplative Sciences 2 months ago. And it was for me a huge learning process as well, because I didn't know the exact remedy for it, but I knew that every time I was in my home yoga studio and someone said, interlace all 10 fingers, I felt like I wanted to vomit. And it just like hurt my heart so much. And I knew that it was so unintentional, but it was such it's such a piece that is so integral in the way that we exchange with people. But when you're not aware, it really is, it can be super detrimental. And so I don't have the perfect, dialogue yet. But what I have noticed is just finding what people feel comfortable, hearing and learning the way that people address their distal end or their arm, or, some people just really have certain words that are very triggering to them, certain pieces of them that are very sensitive. And so, just, I guess, navigating around things like, well, you can just do this, even just that word just, it makes people feel like if they can't reach or overcome a certain obstacle that they haven't achieved something. And so, just really listening to the words that come out. And when we hear something that we feel like, oh, that feels like it could have not landed well, checking in and being in conversation, because really that's how we can move forward as a society, is being in conversation with each other and being authentic and saying, oh man, the first time I went to an amputee group, I said that someone was wheelchair bound and I referred to them in that way. And someone very quickly and very abrasively was like, I am not bound to my wheelchair. I choose to use that. That's a piece of equipment that I choose to use, but I am a human outside of that. I'm a wheelchair user. And I will never again make that mistake. And I think they could tell that I was so heart forwardly apologetic, but that's how I learned. So just being in conversation, I think, is the remedy.
I just want to make a quick comment. Your stories are incredible. As clinicians, as I said, I do a lot of lower extremity amputations. I have a young patient who, after his leg amputation, went on and has gone on to do a lot of different things and sends me videos every once in a while of him skiing or water skiing or doing stuff like that. And I can just tell you, it makes my day. I mean, it's all the things that we deal with on a daily basis that are difficult. We like to celebrate the victories. These are incredible victories. So when he sends me that, it doesn't do it very often, but every 6 months or a year, I'll get a new video from him. Hey, well, doc, I was out in Colorado skiing. Here's a video of me snowboarding. It's phenomenal. I love it. And it makes our day when we hear back that people are accomplishing the things that they want to do. So it's a good one.
Thank you all so much.